All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of The Fab Fatties. We are so excited to join you. And to join you, we are so excited to have you. We
could be joining them.
We're joining you, we're having you. This is just already going off the rails. Hi, I'm Allie.
I'm Rebecca. I'm Alyssa.
Today, we're talking about a subject that a lot of people are talking about. And we're talking about Oprah's special, Shame, Blame, and the Weight Loss Revolution. We do want to let you guys know that both myself and Rebecca did watch the special. Mm-hmm. Alyssa did not. So I would like to start this episode out with you, Alyssa, and talk to us a little bit about why specifically you did not watch the special.
Yeah, it's been all over social media, and especially with the people, we engage with on social media. There's been a lot of conversations around this special, and I wanted to join the conversation, so it came up in one of my team sessions throughout the week where my team was very adamant that I do not watch the special, and they felt that it would be triggering to my recovery. I don't know what's the word.
And when you say your team,
yeah, I mean my team. I mean my therapists and my dietitian all were like, "Why would you do that?" Mm-hmm. And I kind of was like, "Well, like to have good conversations, Yeah. And they were like, "But you know enough to have the conversations. You don't need to watch something triggering and then work like on purpose."
Right.
Yeah. So I do know a lot about the special. I did not watch the special. And I feel even validated in that because while Allie was watching, she texted me being like, "Alyssa, you do not watch this."
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. Why? So what in that moment brought up where you messaged me and you were like, "Don't watch"? What was that moment?
I can't remember the exact moment, but it was very early on that, and I do want to state for our listeners and our viewers, that nothing about our episode here today is meant to, we did do an episode on Ozempic, right? Mm-hmm. So nothing that we're going to talk about today is meant to shame anyone who has looked into these prescription weight loss medications or has taken these prescription weight loss medications. We're not shaming Oprah, anything of the sorts. But very, very early on into the episode, at least for me, I felt that there was a strong narrative that was already being pushed of smaller is better. Smaller is better. And so, yes, very early on, it triggered me, and I couldn't imagine what that must have done for you. So I was like, yeah, listen, I agree. Don't. But I know that you, Rebecca, having watched it as well, your rage kind of came a little bit later. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So first I want to say I would never watch this in my own time. I typically actively avoid this kind of content, and because I don't feel like it serves me, which was interesting because there were times where Oprah really pointed out who the audience was for this, and I would have fit into her view of who the audience is. Like she thinks it's anyone who's dealt with obesity, anyone who's had any kind of experience of,
with the air quotes,
of weight, and of weight, aka everybody, but of a higher weight than society says is okay. And so normally I would completely avoid this kind of material because I know it is likely meant in some way, shape, or form to sell me on something, whether that's an idea or a medication or something else. And I honestly struggle to listen sometimes to experts because they're very much experts on the things they're asked to be expert about, and they're not experts on me living in my body. And so I struggle to deal with what they say because I like to be unaffected by it. But one of the things I was thinking about last night is like Oprah's relevancy to me. Like Oprah's not relevant to me. I haven't watched her since I was a kid. And I liked her when she was giving cars to everybody, Like, I was like, what's her relevance?
You get a car.
Me,
you get a car. Everybody gets a car.
Yes, amazing. Amazing, Oprah, please. But she is relevant to me. because she has so much cultural sway, right? She has the ability to put together this kind of special that is seen on a major network that we actually just met someone a little bit ago who I would never have assumed to watch it. And mostly because he's a straight sized male. And he told me he watched it and that he was interested because someone in his family was considering Ozempic.
Mm.
And so she doesn't get to not affect me as much as I would love for that to be the case because she has such a recognized voice in American society. And she has the resources. She has the pull. She has the business, right? And so I think as much as I want to be untouched by Oprah's messaging, I am not untouched by her messaging. And
Yeah.
that's what I kind of walked away with thinking last night.
Well, I think it's I think it's interesting,
Oh,
right? Like you can get to
already?
borrow Rebecca's word, right? I think it's interesting. Because I do feel affected by Oprah. But there's two sides of it, right? It's not black, it's not white. There is a gray area I feel with Oprah because I feel like who better to talk about the shame and blame, right? Than Oprah, who has been, her body has been the topic of public fodder, right? And the public has felt like they have had permission to d- to discuss Oprah's weight and her body for decades upon decades. And I have been affected by that because every day when I got home from school, my mom was watching Oprah, right? So every single day I was getting these messages, right? And so yes, Oprah very much has been affected by diet culture, by the weight loss industry, by all of these things. And at the same time, Oprah has also been, peddling
Mhm.
these miracle drugs, quote unquote, for decades. It was her rolling a wagon of her 50 pounds of fat onto the stage and her saying, this is the diet that I'm on now and this is the drug I'm taking now and I'm not eating bread, I am eating bread, and very much, perpetuating
Yeah.
the cycle, right? So I am affected by Oprah, and I also understand Oprah has done so much more. Oprah has done so much more than publicly lost weight and publicly peddled weight loss, right? She has done so much more. She is an incredible person, and none of this takes away from that, but it does. It was disappointing. It was disappointing for me because at the end of the day, for me, that special just it still did so much harm. It still did so much harm. There was no accountability of really anybody saying, we know what we've done here. And not only that, this is what we're still doing. This is what we're still doing because we're still saying, look, the narrative has changed. We no longer think it's your fault. We no longer think you're a bad person for this. But the solution to that is still shrink yourself. That's what I got from it. I feel like you're getting emotional.
I am. And I knew I was going to. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know
Yeah.
what we don't know, right? There are people out there in a larger body who still think and believe from messaging that they're the problem, that they're unhealthy, that they're unworthy of the space they take up. And they are actively living their life just to shrink themselves.
Yes.
I'm upset that someone who has as much resources as Oprah doesn't have all of the information. That's why I'm upset. I'm like sitting here and I'm like, no, she has the resources to do better. Her lived experience is so valid, but doesn't that lived experience make you want to learn why? I understand weight loss worked for her. Intentional weight loss worked for Oprah. It does not work for the majority of people, right?
Yeah.
But when she's on a special on TV who reaches millions of people across the world, you know, her quote is, the number one thing I hope people come away with is knowing that obesity is a disease and it's in the brain. It's an unscientific claim.
Yeah.
Well, here's where they're going to disagree with you, because obesity by a certain agency, okay, we can think a certain medical agency has named obesity as a disease. And as someone who studies words, words change over time. What we think of that word changes over time. Depending on institutions, they can formalize words into certain meanings and not. So I think let's get into that whole idea of obesity as disease. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean when we say something is a disease?
I feel like that's a very broad question, a very heavy question. I feel like as it relates to the special, it was leaned on very heavily.
Yes.
It was very much used as a, oh, did you guys get the memo? Did you get the memo that it was that obesity is a disease, that it's a disease? Back in 2013, they called it a disease. Did you get the memo? Did you get, like, it was a joke. Like, it was a joke. It was like a running joke. Did you get that memo? Like, it's not a joke.
Yes, because the idea is that it is a new idea.
It's not.
Well, in terms of in relative history, 10 years isn't that long ago to consider obesity a
True.
disease. And I think the reason they like to say it is because who are they imagining as their enemy? Okay, who are they imagining as the people oppressing fat people? They imagine it to be the schoolyard bully who is saying you're fat and therefore you're lazy, stupid, dumb, etc. That's who they imagine the enemy to be, that needs, and like the answer to that enemy is to say, well, it's not that they're stupid or dumb or lazy, it's that they have a disease. And to them, that's an answer they can live with. They can live with it because then it takes away personal responsibility. And so in some way, for the people who take that, it allows the removal of self as problem. And they kept saying like willpower, et cetera, as like the source of the problem, right? So if it's a disease, it's not about our willpower because we have no ability to affect whether or not we have a disease. Okay. But also on the other hand of that, let's think of other common diseases, right? HIV, et cetera. Which still has a stigma of you caused it to yourself, right? The idea of then not treating it is against everything we believe.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So to me, it's super powerful to say that obesity is a disease because the medical industry then forces us to treat it.
You know, even following that train of thought, that is like super impacting me right now. Like that's landing. And I want to take it as far as obesity is based on BMI. And we can't get into BMI right now because it will be an entire episode on its own about BMI. If you don't know, BMI is not, it was not created and meant to measure one person.
It is inherently racist.
It is inherently racist.
It is meant, the BMI was created to say, this is the ideal body, not this is the healthy body.
So that's what I was going to say, right? BMI it does not relate at all to your cardiometabolic health, which is your blood pressure, your glucose, your lipid levels. That defines your health. That has nothing to do with your BMI.
I think what I'm struggling with through all of this, like, is that we still feel this need, right? As we discuss this, we're discussing this episode, we're discussing, how they're putting this label out there and oh, well, the BMI isn't this and obesity really isn't this and this. This episode truly made me feel that you can be worthy of, you can be fat and be worthy of being treated as a human being as long as all of those things look okay, right? As long as your health is fine, right? So I feel like I need to start like wearing a big ass lanyard around my neck. Like, it's okay, everybody. I'm technically healthy. So you
Mm.
should treat me better, right?
I'd go so far as it's okay to be fat as long as you are attempting to be thin. I don't even know that they would ask questions of these people, and every once in a while they'd give indicators of other types of health numbers, but the first thing was kind of like how much have you lost and like size difference.
Ugh.
And this is one thing that really interested me whenever they talked about obesity as a disease, because I will give them one credit, which is that they did admit if you go on these semaglutides, etc., you are going to be on them for life because the results are only based on this thing being present in your body, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
this is not a treatment until thin and then you can come off of it. If you lose weight successfully, as the goal of this medicine is for some people, you will most likely gain that back if you discontinue usage of that medication. And I'll just say, like, my sister is on it and had to get off for like 3 or 4 weeks due to uh, access issues. And in that time, she said, yes, like the roaring hunger feeling of not being satiated came back so much. She gained, I think, 13 or 14 pounds in that time. And that's where we get into that yo-yoing. That really is hard
Which
for
is
your system.
so dangerous.
Yeah. But one of the things I thought was interesting as they were talking about this fact that, yes, you're going to have to be on this forever, was the fact that when they talked about obesity as a disease, they said that basically as you become thin, you no longer have obesity. But if you were to come off of it, the disease state would come back. So obesity then is purely just fat on your body. There's no other indicators that they're taking in to that. And then Oprah said something like you can be overweight without having the disease of obesity, and that those people could just exercise and diet their way to thinness. So I'm also very confused about that whenever they then describe the way that fat cells and such affect your body.
She paralleled that to alcoholism.
Yeah.
How you can
Some people can drink and not
you
be an
can drink
alcoholic.
alcohol and you can drink a lot of alcohol, but not be an alcoholic.
Yeah. So again,
How does that relate?
well, it comes back down to food noise and food addiction type such, because then they're still saying there's whenever they represent the idea of the people who were having issues pre this medicine, which then is of course they're in the obesity disease state, air quotes. All right. The symptoms they said was that they had really loud food noise, always thought of food, were not ever full.
Yeah.
And I will say for myself, that is something I struggled with. Okay. So whenever they talk about it, and just FYI, in case you didn't know, I've had weight loss surgery. When they said that, I could relate. I've had the feeling of that being a very prevalent part of my thinking. Always thinking about food, always hungry. I used to never feel like I could be full. I never was satiated. So I recognize that to be a real thing that happens. But then when they talk about this medication, they describe it as taking those things away without really explaining what else it does to your body besides making like these bonds that they didn't even explain well. So I'm still really confused by how they describe obesity as a disease, because what I came away from with all their different explanations was that obesity is a disease state, meaning that it's because of the state of your body, aka how much adipose tissue you have, how much fat you have, versus what other things are diseased, which would be how the organ's working or not, or
Yeah.
what the level of XYZ is. You know, like that's what I don't get in the way
I've
they talk about
I
this.
very much took away from this special, and I wound up getting halfway through and calling the girls and like, "Hey, I need some support here because I'm feeling rage and I was feeling very upset." And I wound up talking to Rebecca first. I'm like, "The narrative I'm getting here is obesity is a disease, air quotes, because your brains are broken. Your brains are broken and that's why you're fat. Your brain is broken and that is why you're fat." And it doesn't take into account anything. Like what about lipedema, right? What
They had
about
one throwaway line about it being a more nuanced issues like genetics. There was one line at the very beginning. They never revisit it because guess what? The medications don't have any effect on those things, right? So they
exactly?
couldn't bring those back up. They
They
could only bring up the things that it was all about the medication, right?
exactly.
And so that's really anything that was only relevant to the medication ended up being the discussion that was had about fatness.
Exactly. And then Oprah, I do believe did some harm in saying, well, we're the only ones that have that trouble with food noise.
Yes.
And I immediately thought, okay, eating disorders. People with eating disorders come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
What about their food noise? What about people who are obsessed with fitness? What about people who that are obsessed with body image and don't look anything like us? And she's putting this message out there that no, it's just us.
And it's just food noise.
It's just food noise. And that's
Yeah.
the only reason that we're fat, the only reason that we are obese and that we have this disease, quote unquote, is because of food noise, because we're all addicted to food. That was the overarching message.
All right, I'm fucking pissed.
I'm so sorry.
I know I'm fucking pissed.
Let
and
it
let me
out.
tell you why I'm fucking pissed.
Let it out. It is part of our first section here, and then we'll move on.
I am so angry and heightened listening to this because what I have actually learned as someone living in a fat body who went through so much nutrition classes. Forget about the eating disorder. Let's just talk about all the nutrition classes I have sat through as a fat person, right? What you learn is that thinking of food, when you're thinking of food, let's just say, right? Oh, ice cream sounds good. That's actually a hunger cue. That's actually your body telling you, hey, you're hungry. Do you want to know why people in fat bodies experience that so much? Because of all of the restriction we force on ourselves.
Exactly.
You want to know why you never feel satiated? It's because you're actually not letting yourself eat, one, a full meal, or two, what you actually want. If your body is telling you, man, cookies sound so good right now, and you're like, I can't have cookies. I can't have cookies. They're not good for me. They're unhealthy. And you make yourself eat carrots. You want to know what it's not going to take care of? That cue, your body is sending you cues for a reason, right? It either needs the sugar or needs the fats, and it wants those things for either energy or enjoyment. You're allowed to enjoy food,
Yeah.
right? When your mom makes your favorite home-cooked meal, you bet your ass I'm sitting at that table and gabagooling everything, right? Like, my mom is an amazing cook. And if I am lucky enough to sit at the table and have her cook, I'm going to feel joy with that, right? It brings a
Yeah.
sense of comfort and belonging.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just so angry at this dialogue of fat people are always thinking about food. Yeah, you made us. You've made us so insecure about the food that we're intaking that there's a constant dialogue of this is what I really want, but I can't really have it. And oh, there's people watching, so I have to make sure that I'm eating, fat appropriate way, all quotation marks,
Mhm.
So I'm just so angry because these are natural things that are being demonized.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is a natural thing to think about food.
Yeah.
But
You're
for
so
some
right.
reason, if skinny people do it, it's not a problem. Fat people do it, they're obsessed with food. They're addicted.
Yeah, because when I think about like my friends who are thin, they're foodies. They're thinking about where we're going to go eat, what kind of cheeses are going to be there, what kind of whatever. Like they're planning out their stuff based on what
Yeah.
food they want to enjoy too.
Because it's normal.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
yes.
I will calm down
No,
now.
it's okay.
No, no.
So I'm like
this-
heightened.
This is the rage.
Yeah. No, I think one of the things that I was just like, isn't that cute? Was that's also a bad thing. Isn't that cute?
Isn't that
we got that,
cute?
yeah.
Oprah did some self-deprecating humor around, I'm still going to choose the bagel, but I'm only going to eat half the bagel.
But you know what she said after that?
So the bagel is still demonized.
She said, but it's okay because I'm on this medication now. Now I can have half the bagel and I'll be fine. It's not that I don't want the bagel. And I'm like, eat the fucking bagel. Just eat the fucking bagel.
And you know what is so crazy? Is you're fine because I'm like literally going to tear my hair out. It's
Don't, you have beautiful
fine
hair.
because the medication takes away hunger cues. It's not that your body isn't hungry or it doesn't need the food. It's
Yeah.
just that the medication takes away the feeling. So it
Yeah.
makes it easier to resist, which is then furthering the dialogue that we have no willpower. It is just at its core fucking wrong.
I agree. I do think we should move on to the next section because I do think that we could absolutely just rage for this whole entire episode. And if we would like to, I will give us permission to.
I do want to say one more thing about
Absolutely. Please do.
it. I think the reason Oprah, beyond the fact of like being able to say what the problem is, all right, the problem is no longer our actions and willpower. The problem now is our brains and our body's way of doing this, right? So now I can blame our bodies. Great. All right. I also think in terms of why the people showed up who showed up, which were two leading doctors who like their whole life work is bariatric work, right? And the people that own the main medicine, Ozempic
It's
and
Eli Lilly, like the
yeah,
big pharma, right?
yeah. They showed up because when obesity is designated a disease that then needs treatment, who gets paid? Because they talked about how insurance is not doing enough to cover these kinds of things for people.
Yeah, because you don't need it.
Right. And
Because
so
being fat doesn't mean you're unhealthy.
so now insurance is the one that is the problem because they're the ones standing in the way of people accessing this
Accessing.
stuff. Who's going to make the money for the doctors and going to make the money for the big pharma?
Yeah. I mean,
They wanna
insurance is
sell
a
it.
problem, but like
Right.
in a different
But
in a
interesting
different
that they
episode.
didn't have a seat at the table to
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah. But the two doctors that they had on in the beginning, they made sure to put this disclaimer that both of these doctors are in funded programs specifically for these weight loss medications, right? Like their work is funded. Like they're literally like the poster children for like this is the work that we do. We're actually paid to.
Yeah. I did watch the after special, which I think
I
we'll
did
get
not.
to. Okay, I think we will get to it probably in the next section about the actual medication itself. One of the doctors did surprise me in him saying kind of like, we don't all need this medication. But I'll talk about that moment as we get to it. So why don't we get to it? All right. So the main crux on this, what was the title of the special again?
Shame, blame, and the weight loss revolution.
Okay, so the revolution is coming to us, you know, through semaglutides, GLP-1s, the medications, the injectables, all right? And that was the main focus of it. They did talk a little bit about bariatric surgery, but this is the new trendy medication to address weight. And what was why? Why do I say everything's interesting?
What was infuriating
What
was
was infuriating? I did find it helpful to learn a little bit about how these medications work and which ones they started saying kind of acting as if they're interchangeable, and the doctors would be like, oh wait, they're not interchangeable. They're not interchangeable because one's only been cleared for those with diabetes and one has been cleared for other reasons, for specifically weight loss medication. So I thought that's interesting because at first they're kind of just like sharing them back and forth. Then they're like, oh wait, we can't say it's the same. Again, interesting choice there. But they did get into how these medications work. And I followed some of it.
yeah. There was some sort of lock and key metaphor. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not gonna try and describe it to you. You can Google it, okay? That's not our mission here today, is to describe to you how GLP-1s work. There was a lock and key metaphor. Again, for me, it was very much just what they were doing was describing how these work in a way that your brain is broken. This is how the medicine works to fix it, and the result of that is you get smaller. What I found interesting was, and they also had an analogy of
Of your drowning.
of consistently trying to lose weight on your own. And now here is one thing that I did agree with. And finally they're saying it out loud. The doctor, the male doctor, I think it was W. Scott Bush or Butch, W. Scott Bush, um, from the Cleveland Clinic. He said that he discussed how, bodies have a set point. Bodies have a set point of that that's where they're comfortable being, right? And so it's like you're trying
And not everyone has the
to
same set point.
right, and not everybody has the same set point, and so trying to alter your body and force it out of its comfort zone, quote unquote, right? It's gonna fight its way back to that set point, which is why getting on these medications, yeah, it's great, but you're gonna have to be on it for the rest of your life because your body's still gonna fight to get back to that set point. But what they said was, trying to lose weight on your own is basically like holding your breath underwater. And eventually you're going to run out of air. You're going to have to come up, right? You're going to fail, right? You're going to fail. And so so what are these?
So I guess these drugs make you at least feel like you're breathing water underwater.
Like, is it like scuba diving? Is it like your air tank? What I found the most interesting in talking about these medications, was, and we'll get to the first mother and daughter that came on, but in what they were talking about, this 16-year-old girl, she's 16 still. This 16-year-old girl, I think she's still 16 in the episode. She could have been 18. I'll look back at my notes.
She was going to junior. She was in her junior year. So yeah, I would say 16. Okay. Right.
Okay.
So I think I have the exact quote actually.
Well, it's not that one. I'll let you do that one.
Okay.
But this 16-year-old girl who has already seen, quote unquote, success, with these weight loss medications, and also bariatric surgery.
Yeah, both.
She has a goal to get on the next step up in the weight loss medications. Like, it's not just that she's already on this weight loss medication, but I want to be on the next one. I want to be on Mounjaro or Wegovy or Ozempic, right? It's right now I'm only on Victoza because that's what's approved for teenagers,
over, yeah.
right? For children, but I want to be, but I'm not, it's not, we're not financially able to right now because her mom is on it too. And we're not financially able, but it's also, the barriers. But what a goal, right? What a goal of I've already done this, and this. And now my next goal is to step up in the weight loss medications. What? That, make it make sense. Make it make sense.
I was really mad before, and now I'm really sad.
Yeah.
I'm really sad because I would have been that kid.
Yeah.
I was that kid. I
Right?
consulted on weight loss surgery when I was her age.
I would have been that kid. And I think that's why there's been, at least in the communities that I am proudly a part of, there has been such an uproar at supporting pediatric weight loss.
Yeah.
It's like, let the kids be kids. It affects your body. I understand that you have had the surgery, right? And it has worked and it has done what you wanted, right? Like, it was your choice and your body. But to do it that young, it affects your body. There are negative long-term effects from doing the surgery,
Yeah.
especially at such a young age.
Mhm.
And I would have been the kid to be skinny at all costs.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I did, right? Like, I literally started starving myself.
Yeah.
I was punishing myself for being fat. So when I hear a quote from the Oprah special that is from a mother, it says, a healthcare professional told me that she'd be 500 pounds by the time that she's 16 and that she would die.
the fear mongering.
The fear mongering. And that makes me so upset because so many doctors do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So many doctors do it. I actually saw my doctor this week that we're recording the episode. And I was talking with the nurse and I told her that we were doing a podcast on the Oprah special, and I knew I was in the right place by how she responded to people taking the medication that they don't actually need.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, I'm in the right doctor's office."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm surrounded by medical professionals who are like, that is diet culture.
Yeah.
It is all part of this world of healthy only looks one way. You have to be skinny. So I'm just so sad that now not only are we doing it to people, we're now going as young as kids.
Yeah.
Fat kids are now bad and they need surgery to lose the weight. Are we fucking kidding?
Yeah.
Like that just seems insane to me. You're gonna look at a 12-year-old kid who should be out playing on the playground with their friends and say, you're gonna die by the time you're 16, so let's go ahead and put you under for some weight loss surgery.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that it's not just doctors. It's not just doctors that are doing this. Like, I remember a couple months ago, I told you guys about this fucking girl who reached out to me on Instagram, under the guise of, oh, I
Yep.
just want to have you on my podcast so we can talk about blah, 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 blah. And then tries to like guilt me into a conversation because, I almost died from obesity, quote unquote. I'm like, what do you mean you almost died?
Mhm.
What? Explain that to me. Well, I was almost such and such a weight, and my doctor said that I was at risk of heart disease. Okay. So there are people on the internet who are literally telling people I almost died because you were at risk of heart disease. So does that mean that if I smoke a cigarette, I almost died because I'm at risk of getting lung cancer?
Well, and that's my thing is like, what even was happening for her doctor to say that? Because a lot of times it literally will just be the weight, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what your actual organ functionality is, what your blood levels are,
I have
etc.
literally been told by multiple OBGYNs that I will not be able to have kids.
Yeah.
Based on my weight.
I'm gonna let you know both of my sisters both of them have two
Yeah.
each, beautiful, healthy little girls, and they look like me.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is say, if there's a doctor, there's lots of them, making a snapshot decision about your body's capabilities, they are bad
Yeah.
at practicing.
Period.
That's it. They're not practicing appropriately. And any doctor that does that, I recently met up with a doctor in my overall clinic that I don't normally go to because mine was busy, and he asked me what I ate that morning, and then told me that the reason I had anxiety was because I ate a biscuit that had carbs in it in the morning, and I was
I'm
like,
sorry.
this man
so
asked
sorry.
me one meal. And I am at the point now where I can recognize he asked me about one meal and decided everything about me to come up with that idea.
You ate a biscuit.
I ate a biscuit.
You know
And
what,
that's why I've
Rebecca?
had
That was
anxiety
so
for 20
inappropriate of you.
years.
Because
You know what? I have anxiety because I haven't had enough carbs today.
Well,
Oh,
I
so
do want
true.
to talk about this because Allie had told us like, oh, in the first like 15 minutes, I was already mad. And that's kind of when the first girl is telling her story. And she definitely has this kind of presented transformation story where life is better now. I will say she tries, especially in the after effect, to kind of be like, I wanted more. I wanted people to treat my bigger self better. I'm mad that people didn't treat my bigger self better. And I kind of am like, I hope you treated your bigger self better, or I hope you give your bigger self grace, because sometimes I wasn't sure in the way she responded. But the pediatric section's what pissed me off.
Yeah.
And as a kid who was at 300 pounds by the time I was 18 and going off to college, was the experience easy? No. And so there's a certain amount where I can understand the mother's unease with the hardships her daughter is facing due to her size. Sure. Again, like little things like can't get a cute prom dress, all the way to things like your band doesn't make a costume that fits you and like you're kind of getting kicked out, right? Like there's lots of access issues and there's lots of ways society is mean to you, right? But my body was fully functioning. My hormones, I mean, like I was not unhealthy. I was fat. And also at that age, your hormones, everything is going to your brain health, going to your maturation of your body, if that's the right word. I don't teach writing right now. Like there's so much important work your body is doing as an adolescent that it is really scary to me And I know the woman has said that she's gotten a lot of judgment as a mom. I think it's really scary to choose malnutrition for the rest of your life for your daughter at that age. And
Mm.
I say that as someone who has chosen to have a surgery that can cause me malnutrition, you know? I think it's scary to make that choice for a teenager. And also the mom talked about how she's struggled with her weight all her life, and I see a lot of my thought of projection of her insecurities and such onto her daughter, her fears for herself onto her daughter, and also how she wants to handle herself onto her daughter.
I very much in that segment, all I could think of was, okay, so what happens then? What happens then when your daughter is, let's hope that healthcare as far as health insurance goes, it's still like this in 10 years for her because she's 16 now. What happens when she's 26 and she goes off her parents' insurance?
Yeah.
What if she can't afford the medication?
Yeah.
Where is her where is her self-worth in 10 years
Yeah.
if she can't afford that medication and the weight starts to come back? Because it will. It will.
And it's been so much part of her fundamental upbringing to get so much positive feedback for losing weight. She is on an Oprah national special because she did it. And she seemed charming and wonderful and cute as a
Absolutely.
button and so innocent. And I think about how innocent she is and that these are the values she's being brought around. Good job, you lost the weight.
Mm.
Good job, this medication's working well for you, but this other medication could do even more for you, could make you even thinner. I wonder what her therapy is going to look like in 10, 20 years because
Absolutely.
I don't know how you are not mentally effed from so much of your worth being placed on your ability to still control your body, even if it's control with medication.
And Oprah even said, she was like, and now we're celebrating the fact that she's about to go to prom. Was she not gonna go? Was she not? Was the narrative of, well, now we can celebrate that she's gonna go to prom. She tell little fat girls that they can go to prom. Tell little fat kids that they can go to prom, that they can go to these big life events and they don't have to be scared, right? Start teaching kids, all kids of all sizes, to treat each other differently than the way that we were all brought up, the way that our parents were brought up, the way that their parents were brought up. And maybe in 10 years, she won't have to go to therapy,
Yeah.
right? Because we're not congratulating each other for taking up less space in this world, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the message. Maybe not, oh, it's not your fault, sweetie. It's not your fault.
But
Your
still
bra-
wait for the weight.
Your brain is broken. Let's just wait until you're smaller and then you can live your life.
So on that thought, I wrote a note to myself last night after, just like writing my notes down of what I wanted to talk about today. And the last thing I wrote in my journal was, let's stop the shame by making everyone look the same, by making every body look the same, by making everything digestible for us.
That's exactly what this special aims to say.
It just doesn't address the core issues.
Mm.
So that when we really talk about Oprah and everything in this whole special, yeah, I get the lived experience. Every fat kid in America or even the world, can speak to this experience. And our solution is, let's stop the shame by helping people not be fat.
Yeah, they said the goal
Oof.
is not just to treat the disease, but to prevent it.
Yeah. It actually does feel like an attack.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very much, it feels like shame.
Yeah.
The whole shame, blame, and the weight loss revolution. Okay, you're taking the blame off of us by blaming our anatomy, by blaming our brains. And so we're just supposed to say, okay, well, it's not my fault, but it is kind of my fault. But also,
But now it's my personal responsibility
But now it's my
to now
personal
get medicated
to get
for it.
medication.
Yeah,
When-
because as long as I understand that it's not my fault, but I still desire to get smaller, then
the
it's
pressure
okay.
is very obviously going to be, why are you not on these medications?
100%.
Yeah.
But it's also now access and insurance.
Yeah.
So the last time we did an Ozempic episode,
Mhm.
right? I was on Ozempic.
Mm-hmm.
I am now no longer on Ozempic.
I didn't know that.
I couldn't get access to it.
I knew you had switched to something else.
I had a backup stock.
Oh, that's right.
I had a
Okay.
backup stock of Trulicity.
Right.
Took it, actually liked it better,
Okay.
and still couldn't get the Ozempic. So we just said, we're over it. We're over
Okay.
it. Just and I'm just tired of the noise too. You know, I'm taking Ozempic. I don't think I've lost weight. I don't know. I don't even weigh myself anymore.
Yeah.
My clothes still fit the same. I still feel the same.
Yeah.
You know? So now we're also setting it up for people like, if you take this medicine, it's going to work. It might not. It might not.
Yeah.
I've been on it now for, I don't know. Oh gosh, I actually don't know. A while. At least half a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least half a year.
Yeah.
I don't think I've lost weight.
Yeah, they talked a little bit about how it's about finding the right dosage. It might be switching to a different kind of medication.
Oh
it's
my
about,
God.
Like
It will
basically,
always be
if
about-
one thing doesn't work, go to the next one. One lady shared that she kept throwing up, and like to the point where she was in the hospital from throwing up so
Mhm.
much.
When
And
I first took
they asked
Ozempic,
her,
I
yeah,
was sick.
yeah,
I was sick for at least 2 weeks.
yeah,
Like, couldn't stomach anything. I was nauseous, the whole thing.
yeah. And they asked her about that, and she was like, "I'm too scared to get back on it, so like I'm not looking into it now,
Yeah.
Whereas some of the other side effects that they talked about, they're kind of like, well, like how bad, like to what extent can you live with it? And I get it, as someone who has had weight loss surgery, I have side effects that are mostly easy to live with. But they are side effects that did not exist in my life prior to having the surgery. I had other things that affected me more prior to surgery. So we can't pretend that there aren't side effects. And also, like, a lot of the questions came up, well, what about the longevity of this? Like, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And the doctors kept being like, well, we've had it for 18 to 20 years.
The studies are like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's like, the only reason we just know about now is because of TikTok. I was like, okay, well, even if you want to think about longevity, how many patients have been on it for 18, 20 years that you're studying?
Literally, like I think the most the studies, and this is, I actually learned about this from a podcast I listened to last night, actually, from a registered dietitian. I love following her. I think her name is Bonnie. I can't remember her last name now, but she is the Diet Culture Rebel on Instagram. And I think she's actually Diet Culture Rebel podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those great places. But she did an episode on the Upper Special as well, and kind of same sentiments as us. There were a couple things that she agreed with, and a majority of it that she absolutely violently disagreed with. But that the studies that they're speaking of are like 2 years at best,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't know what happens in the long run. We don't know what metabolically changing your insides, the way that your body works, will do to you long term, right? And we also don't know that after a certain amount of time that these are going to keep working, right? Or if you're going to just, there are
Plateau.
people that have just plateaued. We don't know if there's going to be people that it just comes back because of the set points,
I was
right?
gonna say, our body will, they kind of push against the idea that your body regulates to it or gets used to it and has to go up a level. They push back against that, but we really don't know the long term,
No.
reasons about this. I know we are going to have to wrap up soon, so I'm kind of wondering what your like final thoughts are that you've had when it comes to the different topics that they discuss. And we didn't even get to half of them because there's so much to say about all the different ideas that was brought up here.
I think for me, I'm genuinely disappointed. I'm disappointed. I immediately was full of rage when I was first watching. But having had, time to let the dust settle, I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed. I don't want to say I'm disappointed in Oprah because that doesn't feel good to me. But I'm disappointed in Oprah. I don't think I think this special did so much more harm. I can't really say that the special did any good.
Mm.
Um, I think it did a lot of harm. I think that it just perpetuated um, stereotypes that and stigmas that are already there. And I think I think that Oprah, again, while I can acknowledge that Oprah has been personally victimized by diet culture and the weight loss industry, she's still very much in it.
Yeah.
And and still very much in that belief that smaller is better.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been a great opportunity um, for her and whoever she chose to bring on to have a different conversation. And if they really wanted to talk about shame and blame and the weight loss revolution, I think that conversation could have gone much differently. And I'm disappointed.
My final thoughts are I'm happy I didn't watch.
Mhm.
I don't feel good about anything that was shared in the special.
Yeah.
I don't feel good about any, and it frankly feels very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, almost like it unvalidates my lived experience.
Mhm.
Like I feel like my lived experience is now invalid based off of, what Oprah shared on the special. And
Talking about like a monolithic view of fatness and how we were all there and all
yeah,
that stuff. It's a very one-way street
yeah.
narrative.
And I'm really, really upset that there are people out there who still very much believe that.
Yeah.
I think that hits hard for me.
Yeah.
I have a couple final thoughts. The first one being like I'm very much aware that the people in the audience are in agreement with her, and so we see a lot of people nodding their heads, and it feels like, whoa, why am I reacting differently than all these people nodding their heads and doing a tear and all this stuff?
Mhm.
And I have to remember those people in the audience for a reason, probably because they agree with the message. I am glad I watched the little 25-minute after show because I think there was a couple moments in there that were really telling to me. One was a lady who stood up and was like, okay, but like, what about the mental care and emotional care
Mm.
for fat people? And like, what about, like once you lose some of the weight and like dealing with the praise that you get and like dealing with those hard feelings and all that stuff. And Oprah's kind of like, well, that could have been a whole nother episode. And I'm like, why wasn't it?
Ooh.
Why wasn't it?
Why wasn't it?
Why wasn't it maybe the star even of the conversation?
Oh, yes.
That is the episode.
Yeah.
That's the conversation.
Yeah. Like, how in the world do we care for fat folk?
You literally had a 16-year-old girl on there.
Yeah.
A 16-year-old girl that you have completely brainwashed to think that her biggest achievement in life so far is getting smaller.
Well, and
Mhm.
reduced her to just her weight, reduced her story to just her weight. I think the other thing that also was eye-opening was another woman stood up and was like, this is the miracle drug.
Mm.
I have had, until this moment, I could not be the mother I am, could not be the spouse I can be now, could not do X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. And thank you, Oprah. I love you, Oprah. You're the one paving the way for this. And it was very much like, you're in a cult. Okay. But like I had a moment of like, are you okay? Did you drink some Kool-Aid before you came in here?
Blink twice if you're okay.
Yeah. But the level of agreement, the level of belief, the level that I am now worthy and capable that this woman truly believes about herself scares me. Because this gets that's that black and white thinking, but like before I started it, I was this, and after I started it, I am this, and my capabilities were here, and now they're here. But this transformation based view of ourselves that diet culture really pushes for us to think. The way it asks us to take pity on our past self. The way it asks us to no longer connect with that. That person couldn't do this. I'm now capable and I'm now in control of my life and I'm now can reach my dreams.
That person is dead.
Is, yes,
Mhm.
that is really scary to me. And it's a narrative that Oprah was willing to put forward, a narrative these doctors and pharma is willing to put forward, because the pharmacist person was like, or the pharmacy people were like, that's what these are the stories we need to hear, you know? Yes, because it sells your product. It uncomplicates a very complicated reality. And I would just like to say, as a fat person who is still fat, who was more fat, who sometimes benefits now from people being like, you're the good fatty, my life is still just as messy, complicated. I am still sometimes a good person. I'm still sometimes seen as a bad person. And I have days where I can take on the world and days I can't. And I am so much more than my body. And my body is so much more than people see it as.
Oh, what a beautiful way.
And it
to
was
sum it
such
up.
just a reductive conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful way to end the episode.
Yeah.
I really do.
Thank you.
So on that note, we're friends.
We're fat.
We're fab.
And we'll see you next time.
Energy, energy, energy.
Bye, guys.
Allie was telling us that we weren't energetic enough at the end of our
Just
episodes.
felt like it was like, okay,
But David,
bye.
we just hit y'all with some truth bombs, and sometimes some silence need to be
Sometimes
said.
it's a little heavy, but not today. Allie wanted sparkles and rainbows. So bye.
Love you,
Sparkles
bye.
a lot. Bye.